be present, like in as bold, big, highlighted letters as possible. For me, being present is something that is so tough for me to do, but it's the most rewarding thing. And I'm only 28, and there's so many of my years where I wish I was just more present and less distracted and just a better listener, a better friend, whatever it is. And it's so much easier to disconnect and to be distracted than it is to be present.
Hey, Uncommon Leaders, welcome back. This is the Uncommon Leader Podcast, and I'm your host, John Gallagher. Christine and Tom Carmazzi, welcome to the Uncommon Leader Podcast. What a treat this is. I can't wait to have the conversation today about your book that's coming out real soon. How are you guys doing today?
Oh, fantastic.
Great, yeah. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm pretty excited about the conversation. Christine, your dad has been on a couple of times already, so he gets a pass on the first question, but you don't. This is your first time. And I asked the same question to all my first-time guests, and we'll start you off with that question just to get you loosened up a little bit. So tell me a story from your childhood that still impacts who you are today as a leader. Tom, you can close your ears if you want to, so that we can be totally honest, right?
Yeah, no, my dad has seen all of it. So John, if you don't mind, I'm going to tell like two stories. One from kindergarten, right? So, kindergarten, you're like 6 years old, and we're learning how to tell time. We're looking at a clock, looking at a digital clock. And so we're kind of going, okay, 6 o'clock is this on the face, 6 o'clock or 12 o'clock is this on the face. And this girl who's sitting in front of me turns around and sticks her tongue out at me. And I'm like, well, I'm going to stick my tongue out back at her because what is this? And instantly the teacher sees me stick my tongue out and puts me in timeout. And I am shocked, sobbing, trying to, state my case of no. She stuck her tongue out first. And the teacher's like, I don't care. You're in timeout for 30 minutes, all this sort of stuff. So I was just like, okay, so this is what life is like. Life is not fair. I need to take accountability. Sure, someone did this thing first, but that's now, this is my problem to bear now. So it really kind of taught me from a very early age of girl, you better be accountable for your own actions because these are the repercussions, and there's no way you can really kind of sweep those off. So I was definitely a pretty spunky child, very bold, very sassy. So I wish I could say that one lesson kind of nipped it in the bud, but it definitely did not. But so that was kind of 6 years old, and then flash forward to 18. I started out my undergraduate career at University of Oregon. I didn't know anyone, moving from the suburbs of Chicago all the way out to Eugene, Oregon. I was like, okay, what are my best chances of kind of making friends here? So I enrolled in a 1 week free semester backpacking. It's called the Wilderness Institute for Leadership Development. And what really, really allowed me to hone in my leadership skills there was we had this day, we were backpacking along the Oregon coast, all sand dunes. So every step you take, it's trying to take 2 steps and you're kind of going back. And it was just day after day of this. We got to a stopping point where we had to cross a river, an inlet. And so, with the tides being low, that crossing is going to be a little bit easier. As the tides come up, you're going to be waist deep in some water. So we had just done a really, really long day of backpacking through the sand. Everyone's exhausted, but we have this kind of shining star of a campsite that we can make it to if we go another 5 miles. There's no sand. It's being described as this oasis. It's just supposed to be beautiful. So the leader kind of looked at me and was like, Christine, what should we do? Should we wait for low tide or should we do it now? And should we get to that oasis? And I'm looking around and he's like, no, this is your decision. You're going to be the one deciding what we're going to do as a group. So, kind of weighing in how the team was doing, I was just like, I think we can do it. We're going to hit this at high tide. We're going to get to that oasis. We're going to enjoy the night. We're going to get out of the dunes. And we did it. And it was amazing. And so at that point in time, it was not only am I taking that accountability piece from when I was 6, but now wow, okay, 18, I'm impacting other people's lives and my own. and being able and confident enough to be okay with that decision, and knowing that, whatever outcome it is, I made that, I'm accountable for that. So that was just a really, really transformative experience for me. And I'm really, really glad that that backpacking trip happened, because again, it's just kind of shaped me to be who I am today. So yeah.
I love that. From sticking your tongue out to leading, right? How that was the catalyst for leading, from taking responsibility for your actions and making those decisions. Fun stories, and I can't wait to talk about a few more as we talk about actually your book that's coming out. I Love You More Than, a heartfelt story of a father and his daughter and their uncommon way of connecting. So I love the title, obviously, because you throw the word uncommon in there. It's the Uncommon Leader Podcast. But Tom, I'll start with you. When you think about just the title of the book, tell me about the title and what that means with regards to when someone opens those pages up and starts to read it.
Well, so initially our email quote exchange didn't have that phrase in it. But I would say, I don't know exactly, but probably at the end of the first year, I would end every one of my quotes / messages to Christine with, I love you more than. And the I love you more than, the rest of that after the ... would be something out of that quote. To, in essence, bring that quote to life in my love for Christine. And it was also trying to convey that what love really is and how almost exponential it is. I love you more than, giving your all. It's like, I love you more than what becomes possible when I give my all. It's like, whoa, that's pretty big. Holy cow. So that's, gosh, now there's probably, I don't know, Christine, maybe 600 emails out there that have as a closing line, I love you more than.
Wow.
And so it just became the title of the book. It just naturally flowed.
No, I appreciate that. And I can't wait to talk about that framework that got you started. Christine, what was the catalyst for you to kind of turn it into a book? So you had these stories, you had these emails, this back and forth conversation and connection with your dad. And again, we'll talk about the depth of what that means in terms of how you all did that. But when you thought about putting it into a book, what did you go through in your mind and your heart?
Yeah, that's a really great question. It was truthfully a lot of the conversations I've been having with some of my peers or, friends, like no one has this relationship that I do with my dad. I feel it's so special, right? And this interaction that my dad is intentionally doing day after day after day after day. And I am accepting that call, so to speak, day after day after day. It's like, this is very, very unique that my dad and I have. And the spirit of writing the book is just like, why not have this relationship with your family or, a friend? Like it's something that does take effort. Yes, but it's been so rewarding. And I really wouldn't know how to jumpstart those conversations without really having this, like, it's not a textbook, but it kind of is. It's like, okay, here's something in copy that shows what we've been doing. And like, yes, it is possible for someone else to kind of adopt the same methodologies. So really, I mean, yeah, twofold. Like one, just recognizing that there are a lot of broken families, a lot of families that don't put in the energy. And two, really wanting to have that like legacy, so to speak, of like, no, this is on paper. Like all these emails my dad and I have been exchanging back and forth might one day, blow up with the internet, who knows, but we have like a physical copy that is just like a testament to this relationship, which is so special. So.
No, I love that. And I think the word that I sensed and I had written down in part of my notes as a question was very intentional in terms of how that got started. So, this book is, at least broken down, if you will, into 13 learnings. And there are many more, but these are 13 learnings you picked out of those kind of 600 emails that went on. Tom, like, tell me what made you start this? What made you start to send the first one? The first email that went out? What was there? I mean, and what's the framework in what you were looking for?
So, so I retired at the end of 2019. And part of my reward for that was to go on this 2.5 or 3 month ski trip, just really punch out. And that was wonderful. Well, during that ski trip, right towards the end of it, COVID hit and they literally started closing resorts. And it was interesting. It was a real shock. It was at that magnitude. I wasn't afraid of getting COVID. I felt I was healthy enough that I could, take it physically. But when they started closing ski resorts, it's like, holy cow, this is real. So I get home and Christine is, literally on the other side of the United States. And, it, you know, I'm thinking that I want some way to reach out to her that doesn't feel like I'm caretaking her, like I'm worried about her. She can't handle this. It's like, I just want it to be some little email quote that I send. And the intentionality was, from my point of view, the leadership in Washington was going a little wacky. I mean, it was chaotic. And so I wanted to send to Christine a quote from one of our forefathers that showed that we were founded on wisdom. We were founded on, yes, it was a chaotic time, but we kept our cool and worked our way through it. And so I wanted to send a quote which was from someone she would recognize. And it really was a foundational item that says this is really what America's about. And I thought, I just can't send this cold quote. I got to kind of give, well, what's my perspective on that? And I sent it. And I wasn't waiting for something back. It was more like, I just want her to know I'm here. And I want her to know that this country, is founded on some fundamentals that still exist today, although someone may question if they do. And so I sent that off. And literally, it wasn't like I'm sitting by my computer. When's he going to come back?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like that at all. I was just sitting there, and I don't know, 3 or 4 hours later, bink, in comes this reply, and like, whoa. So initially, it wasn't every day. It was like maybe 2 or 3 times a week, but I'd say within 3 or 4 months, they were coming out Monday through Friday, and Christine would respond. So yeah.
Love how they got started. Christine, you received the first one. Like what's going through your mind as you receive the very first email that comes over?
It's like this is so typical dad. Like everything about this is like so typical. It was very welcomed though. It was very reassuring and comforting. My dad and I have always had this very open relationship where we can kind of chat about anything. We might not come together at the end and be like, "Oh, I agree with your viewpoint, and I'm going to adopt that viewpoint." It's more just like there's a safe space to speak our minds. Whatever is said is going to be in a respectful way. And so when this quote comes through, it was very much so like, it wasn't unexpected kind of a thing. I'm like, this is something dad would do. But it was just that reassurance piece of like, someone is thinking about me and caring about me and reaching out and being like, hey, is everything okay? And even though the world is kind of crazy right now, here are some like tethers to reality that like, we're not going to just be victims and like be like sitting by ourselves upset. It's like, no, 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 there are great things that have happened and will happen. And just those reminders were really, really nice to have. So I was very, very grateful, but yeah, definitely not surprised.
Well, I think that says a lot. I mean, look, I'll embarrass Tom right off the bat because I know you've seen it because it was in the book. Christine, you saw your dad as your best friend, and it sounds like that was part of that growing up as well, but also a father and a mentor, caring but did not caretake, but he also expected independence. Tom, those are phenomenal words. Those are words that you hear, sort of at the end, not even during sometimes, as a father or as a friend or as a mentor. How do those words, strike you when you read them and when you hear them?
Uh, well, they're very honoring, and it's what I want. And I always, that little inner critic keeps telling me, you're not there yet. Oh, and guess what you did today? And oh, geez, how can you ever get to that point if you just did this or that? And so, we talk about that intentionality. I would say that's my intention, is to have that kind of a relationship, especially with our children. I mean, and with my spouse, with Deb. So to hear that played back to me, um, is what warms my heart. I mean, it's a good day.
Hmm.
It's a good day. Yeah.
Yes, it is. I think it's the greatest story ever told, but that's how I talk about it in terms of when those people that are closest to you love and honor you the most. It's pretty powerful. So I just want to honor you in that as well. And you too, Christine, for being bold enough to share that with your story. It's, you know, something that I strive for as well as a dad, as a mentor, to hear those words many times. So thank you for sharing that inside of the book. The book's framework really talks about how you did these emails, and you talked about the format. It starts out with a quote explaining who it was, and then your perspective, and then the volley, if you will, starts to occur. Each of the pages in the book is kind of reflection on those stories or an awareness that you had, and maybe some of your favorites, like Our Story or Fear or Freedom. There's one specifically that touched me, and I don't even know if I can remember kind of the theme or the name of that chapter. But Christine, if I ask you, what do you do for a living? Tell me about that just a little bit.
Yeah, it's one of those questions you hear like every day, or if you're meeting someone new, networking, whatever it might be, sitting next to someone on an airplane, like just kind of that casual, universal question that we all love to ask. Yeah, my dad has really I've become like a convert of like hating that question, mostly because of my dad. So, and I've definitely put my foot in my mouth asking someone that question or something along those lines. So yeah, what do you do for a living? I've learned it's putting someone in a box. I've been put in a box because when people ask me that question, I mean, we are all humans, right? When we have conversations, there are thoughts going through our minds. So as soon as I say what I do, that other person is making assumptions about me. And same for me. If I ask someone what they do for a living, even if I really try not to do it, my brain just instantly goes to start thinking about different little biases or assumptions or whatever. And I just hate that. So, yeah, I will expand a little bit about how I put my foot in my mouth with that. I was in college and I went to a house party and I didn't really know a lot of people. I was with my now husband. And so he's super social. And I'm like, well, I'm going to try to make an effort and try to like, mingle as well. So I go up to someone and it's not exactly what do you do for a living, but it was, oh, where do you go to college? And he's like looking at me and he's like, I don't go to college. And I'm like my brain like instantly shut down. And there's nothing wrong with not going to like, undergraduate. But for some reason, I just had this script already laid out in my brain of what I was going to ask, how they were going to reply. And I just realized like that is just really doing a disservice to this person, to a potential, friendship that could be made. And it's, who is that really serving? What is the real agenda behind that question? So, yeah, I definitely learned my lesson there. But yeah, it's one of those things. I've found almost any other question to spark a conversation other than what do you do for a living? Because it's one of those things. I don't want to be put in a box and I don't want to put other people in a box.
I love that. I appreciate how you shared, especially in terms of meeting your now husband and some of the things that you went through that, well, I don't go to college. Like, it's like, I mean, from a feeling standpoint, as you said, it shut you down right off the bat. But as we learn as humans and really opening up those questions that allow you to learn more about those individuals can be so powerful. Look, as you all kind of went through each of those learnings and you volley back and forth with the conversations, I love how I've learned from you prior to hitting record on the call today that you weren't really sitting next to each other as you wrote those stories and how it's been assembled. You end each of those learnings with some reflective questions. Tom, tell me about the intention behind ending with reflection questions. For the reader, I'm sure there's something there that you want.
Yeah, so I know that I was blessed with mentors that would, after an event or after a story, would say something like, "And what's there for you?" And that open-ended nature, that non-leading nature, really had me think at a much deeper level versus saying something like, "Well, didn't you like that story, Tom?" It's like, yeah, it was cool, but I don't think past that question. So these learnings, these 13 learnings, let's just call them, they're each one of those is an exploration of Christine and I's relationship. And maybe through that reading, there might be something there that if Christine and I ask at the end an open and non-leading question, maybe they'll find something there for them as well. And that's really, the intention of it, the spirit of it, is just to maybe help the learning.
Love that.
Yeah.
Christine, when I think about the book test, that is, kind of, folks get your book, and I think folks should. We're going to put the link to the website of where they can find it and go out and buy a copy or multiple copies, because we'll talk about, actually, I think it's going to impact not just father-daughter relationships, but intentional relationship building, among others. After they've read the book, the book test it sits up on a bookshelf just like behind me. A year later, they see the backing of that book, or maybe it's on the front. What do you want them to think after they've read that book a year later, and when they see that book binding? What do you want them to think, or even what do you want them to do when they read your book?
I would love for our book to be a reminder of maybe a little poke to say, hey, maybe you should reach out to your parents or your friend or your cousin, whoever it is. It's more of, I want it to be kind of a feeling to connect versus more of like a concrete thought, but just that feeling of, I want to reach out, I want to foster relationships. The book itself is very colorful, so it's, really happy colors. I just want that feeling to come across whenever someone sees it on their shelf.
Love that. Tom, what about you? What do you want folks to feel after they've read the book?
So you said 1 year out?
Yeah, when you're out. Yes.
Yeah. So this would be that they look up there and they see it and they say, "That's where it started.
Hmm.
That's where it started." So meaning that had them obtain, really exposed. We had courage within all of us, and that from that book, boom, today I have this outstanding relationship with John Doe that I cherish so much. And that all started with, "I love you more than." Whoa, whoa, there it is again. Yeah.
Tom, coach me how to get started. I'm sending text messages to my spouse. I'm sending text messages to my son or daughter, and I'm just not getting any reply. And I don't think it's getting through. Coach me through that in terms of, you talked about this already. It wasn't like you were waiting for a response back, but how do you get started, and how do you stick with it?
Well, for me, the key is that it had to be easy, because um, I knew what I didn't want. I didn't want this to be a one and done. I wanted this an ongoing relationship. So I wanted to pick something that was easy in terms of my mining of these quotes, easy in terms of the time commitment, and also, quite frankly, I could just pour out my heart. I didn't have to do a whole lot of research on a given topic. And so that would be the first. Make it easy. Make it easy. And then secondly, so it's easy, but it also has to be something that's of interest to you. And so I love these quotes. I mean, they're just, from Martin Luther King to Billie Jean King. I mean, just a wide variety, but they're names that everyone knows. And so to bring those up and not just post them, but for me to explore kind of beyond that sentence, beyond that word, what I might make up she was thinking or he was thinking, and go what it meant to me. And then the last one is to not have an agenda.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm just sending these quotes because I care about Christine. And just recently, I've started sending them to our son, Mike. And Mike's reply rate is a heck of a lot less. But that's okay. I mean, really,
Mhm.
it's just, I just want Mike to know I'm out here and here's a cool little quote. And if he gets a chance to read it, he gets a chance to read it. If he doesn't, he doesn't. But it's just a little ping, beep, beep. So to not be attached, not like, well, if I don't get a reply, then I'm going to stop this.
Mhm.
No, man, just launch it. And Christine and I used quotes. Someone else could use something else. It's just whatever works for you. So
It's
that's kind
funny
of
you
be
say
what
that. In a story that came to my mind just as you were going through about not being attached. So, raising two boys was one of those things that, being um, affectionate with boys in public, as a father and son is not always recognized. The fist bump and the high five, that's kind of macho and that's what you do. But I had told them I won't, kind of embarrass them in public. But if I stick my hand on top of their head and just rub their head as a check-in with them, it was just my way of letting them know affectionately that I love them. And it's something that is there, even with the zero response, because sometimes it's that persistence that there's going to be one of them that's going to be a catalyst that really makes a difference. And I think what you're doing again, I had read a book years back, and it doesn't. The name of it was "Everyone Communicates, Few Connect," and that is, and even in your title, that is what you all have done. Instead of just communicating with each other, connected with each other with quotes and with perspectives, and providing you an opportunity. Again, it could be something different than a quote. It could be a Bible verse. It could be a picture or a photo from something that pops up on Time Hop that we continuously, could be a hashtag, whatever it is, where we do our exercise and we check in. Many different ways to be intentional about connecting. And I appreciate the intentionality that you all have done that with, and with purpose to connect. We're coming up just a little bit on time. I want to honor your time, but I do have a few more things I just have to ask about. And I'll start with you, Christine. I want to know about this emergency envelope. That was one of the stories that was in the book as well. Tell me about this thing.
Oh yeah. So I still have it. When I went off to college at Oregon, my dad packs this like, just a normal standard mailing envelope, but it is like taped shut. It's written emergency in big capital letters on it. It's got highlighter marker all over it. Like, literally, do not open this thing, but this is going to be your lifeline if there's an emergency. And, he's just like, put this in a safe place, but not like, don't hide it too much because when you move, you're gonna want to remember it. And I still have that thing. So it has gone through, I'd say, at least 10 moves. I was moving a lot during my undergraduate career. So this thing has gone with me for a very, very long time. Yeah, so since 2018. But it was one of those things where I kind of knew what was in it. To this point, I still haven't opened it.
You haven't opened it yet. Okay, so
I
28,
haven't
you haven't.
opened it.
6 years. Wow.
And the one thing I do know that I'm almost positive is in there, and Dad, correct me if I'm wrong, but it is um, like a map's view of how to get from Eugene, Oregon to Winsdale. So from my college town to my hometown, like there's literally like every step of how to get home. So it is like emergency in that sense of, hey, if I need to get home and for some reason I can't fly, I guess I'm walking, and here's how to do
Here's the
it.
way.
Yeah.
Here's the way.
Yeah.
That is
But
awesome. All right,
yeah,
Tom.
I
So
mean,
what's in it? You're allowed to say what's in it. What else? Is she right? Is that map in there?
absolutely right. And the spirit of that is, GPS gets knocked out, whatever, it's like, let's just go to hard copy, old school, here's how you get home,
Highlighted
and
atlas pages. Do you know what an
exactly
atlas is,
right.
Christine? Have you
Well,
ever used one of
mhm.
those?
you,
Okay.
you bet. You bet. And then there's cold hard cash. I mean, because let's say the credit card isn't working or whatever. It's like, hey, you got a map, you got cash. Pointer east. Get on home. So, yeah,
That is
yeah,
great.
yeah. That's the key components.
That's funny. All right. Speed round, and you almost got to have your buttons here. So we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna go
All
away from
right.
the book a little bit. This is a little father-daughter kind of true or false. Who's the better skier?
Oh, my dad.
Christine.
No,
Ah, see,
no, no, mm-mm. No, definitely my dad. He gets into some, oh, okay, first of all, sheer amount of days skiing, dad wins. Also, ability, dad wins. Ability to handle the cold, dad wins. So I think it's lights out. Dad's got that
Yeah.
one.
Okay. So John, you got to ask who goes faster? Yeah.
Yeah.
All I'm
That's the
seeing
story
is,
I've heard, Christine, is that you're all
yeah,
about speed.
I am
yeah,
a speed
yeah,
demon. Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
I just have a
yeah.
vapor trail that I'm following. Yeah. 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 No, she's again, I'm like skiing 15 times more than she does in a given year. And Christine just shows up and does an amazing job. So she's got a real
Yeah.
gift there.
All right. Who's better at pool? Billiards.
Oh, definitely my dad. We
Hey
still
John, keep
play.
on keep on picking this stuff that I'm that
Yeah,
I'm good at. Okay. Don't
yeah.
pick anything like running, hiking,
I was
climbing.
gonna
Don't
say
pick
I
any
was
of
gonna
those.
say dancer. Who's a better dancer?
Oh, Christine. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's a close one too. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah,
Who's a
we've
better
definitely
cook?
had a lot of practice.
Who cooks
Mm.
better?
Christine, amen. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm like a total cereal guy. Yeah, that's
But
as
if
far as
you
I go.
but if you want like a greasy spoon breakfast, then my dad.
Yes, he
Yeah.
does. He does make a good
Yeah.
breakfast. There's no doubt about that. Those blueberry
Mhm.
pancakes and that bacon.
Woo.
Oof, that's good stuff.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And only the real syrup too. Don't be messing around with any sugar-free stuff. Trying to be on a
Yes.
diet. Forget that stuff on breakfast. All right.
Mhm.
Who was the when you think about how you all wrote this book, what were the emotions that you all went through in writing a book together? And who was better at handling those emotions?
Woof, woof. I would say Christine was. I mean, first off, she couldn't see me with the tears in my eyes,
Mhm.
and but there's a lot in that book of my journey from figures to faces, from head to heart, and so um, and especially to be doing that, talking about experiencing even more of it with that journey with her was extremely special to me and my emotions. Quite frankly, I was glad to be feeling them because much of my life I didn't feel much of that. So it was pretty,
Mm,
it's pretty cool.
very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. It was almost like going through the best therapy session you could ever have of all the amazing positive things that have happened in your life with some humor like speckled in. And it was just like every week, you get these constant reminders and these memories pulled back. Um, where truthfully, the appreciation of what my dad has done for me and my family and our friends um, is just so amazing to think like this is my dad who is literally putting so much of his heart and energy into like making sure that like the people around him feel that love. Um, yeah, it was wonderful. So I would do the experience again, 10 times over. And now it's like we are at the culmination of it all. We're at the end. And it's like, this is the best reward after the best process to have a copy of it. So, yeah, the best words I could use to describe it. It's just like, yeah, the most positive therapy session week after week after, after week. Emotional, but very, very like joyful.
I love that in terms of saying to your point, when you put that book in your hands, that when it comes in and you're able to just kind of touch it and see the calm, that's going to be quite an emotional rush, I believe. I've not written a book myself, although I do have visions of doing that. But I got to believe that's going to be a great moment. And you mentioned it's kind of that culmination, the end. Look, I think when you think you're done, you've just begun. I think it's like the start of the story and your ability to share with others the power of what you've been through in terms of intentional relationship building. Speaking of touching that book, Tom, where do you want folks to go to see this thing and get a copy of it?
The release will be June 26th, and they'll be able to get it out on Amazon. And so that is in terms of the book. And Christine and I have a website that says tomcarmazzi.com. And so those would be the primary. You won't be able to get it until June 26th, and it'll be out there on Amazon. So that's where they can grab it.
Excellent. Look, Christine, I have one more question for you. It's how I finish with all. I bookend my podcast with all, but I want to wish you all the best in the launch, and I'll get this information out to as many as I can. Listeners, I think you need to grab a copy of this book. Again, the spirit behind this with regards to connecting intentionally and relationship building has the power to change our world. I believe that. I really do. I've read through it 3 times now, and I keep finding something new about it each time I go through it. So I encourage you to get out there and get a copy of it. Christine, I'm finishing you off with a traditional podcast question, though. And it's almost kind of, maybe it's something tied to the book or maybe not, but I'm gonna give you a billboard. You put it where you're in California now, right?
Yes, Southern California.
Yeah, so you can put this billboard up wherever you want to out there in California, so millions of people see it on a daily basis. What's the message you would put on that billboard? You can put any message you want to, and why would you put that message on there?
Yeah, I would put be present, like in as bold, big, highlighted letters as possible. For me, being present is something that is so tough, like so challenging for me to do, but it's the most rewarding thing. And I'm only 28, and there's so many of my years where I wish I was just more present and less distracted and just a better listener, a better friend, whatever it is. And it's so much easier to disconnect and to be distracted than it is to be present. And so a billboard that has that reminder right in your face sometimes is what I need. So that's what I would put. Be present. Yeah.
Excellent. Christine, Tom, thank you very much for sharing with the listeners of the Uncommon Leader podcast. I wish you the best with the book launch and all the success you want in the future as well.
Thank you, John.
Thank you very much,
wonderful.
John.